Greetings, everyone. This is the next installment in the Vijñāna-bhairava-tantra video series. We're looking at verse 34, and I'm currently in Switzerland on my way to Italy to do a retreat there. So let's get started. This will be a shorter video, partially because the verse is not at all complex, and partially because I haven't had a chance to properly look at Shivopadhyay's Sanskrit commentary. I've glanced at it, and it does look, has a couple of interesting things in there, and I hope to post about those in the Tantric Yoga Now Facebook group once I've looked at the commentary a little more carefully. Okay, so let's just dive right into the verse. Kapālāntar mano nyasya tiṣṭhan mīlita-locanaḥ krameṇa manaso dārḍhyāt lakṣayet lakṣyam uttamam. There we go. And the translation is, remaining with eyes closed, fix your attention inside the cranium. By means of gradually increasing steadiness of mind, you will perceive that which is most worthy of being perceived. Okay, so let's break it down phrase by phrase. The end of the first line, or the end of the first half of the verse, we see mīlita-locanaḥ, eyes closed. Tiṣṭhan, remaining with eyes closed. Tiṣṭhan, remaining, and it has connotations of stillness, steadiness, stability. And then we get the phrase mano nyasya, having placed one's manas, but here manas means the faculty of attention. And a lot of people don't know that. They hear the translation of manas as mind, but it specifically, in many contexts, means the faculty of attention. So mano nyasya, having placed the kind of focal point of attention, where? Inside the cranium. So the top of the inside of the skull. Now, what is strange about this phraseology is that we get the word kapāla. Kapāla specifically is used to mean a skull bowl that is used by transgressive tantric practitioners, and still sometimes used by aghoris today. And aghoris are the kind of latter-day descendants of these kapālika transgressive tantric practitioners. They're called kapālikas, meaning those who carry a kapāla, a skull bowl. So a kapāla specifically means a skull bowl. In an earlier usage of the word means like a clay dish. So the earlier antecedent of the word kapāla is not actually skull, but bowl. So a kapāla is a skull bowl. And it's an unusual word to use in this context. We would expect just inside the head, murdni, rather than kapāla. So what is the point of using this word in this verse? I think it is important because at the time of the composition of this text, mid-9th century, we believe, kapālikas were numerous throughout India, both tantric style kapālikas and non-tantric style. And I can't get into that distinction now, but it's elaborated in detail in Alexis Sanderson's works. But a kapālika, whether tantric or not, carries a skull bowl. There were many, many, many of these kapālika practitioners in India at this time. So kapāla is immediately going to make people think of, they've seen actual people carrying around these skull bowls, wearing a loincloth, wearing the 6 bone ornaments or shanmudras, carrying a skull bowl. And so here to say, fix your attention on the inside of your own skull, but to use this word kapāla reminds you of your own mortality. Because these skull bowls that these kapālikas used, I mean, they drank from them, they ate their meals from these skull bowls, which were, you take a human skull and you saw it, whether here or here, you basically saw off the top. And, it's, why do people do this? Well, we could go on at length about that, but it has to do with overcoming fear of mortality, mastering your fear of death. It also has to do with overcoming the ego. It also has to do with purposefully shocking people in society at that time. And indeed, it would probably be shocking for people now if they thought it was real, if they saw you eating out of a skull bowl. Drinking and also taking your ritual sacraments, your ritually consecrated wine from this skull bowl as well. Okay, so people really saw that back then, and so the usage of this term is going to make them think, oh yeah, those skull bowls I've seen, the kapālikas carry, those are, that was the skull of a real person, and that could be me. That could be my skull in the future. So there's a way in which the verse is calculated to make you think of your own mortality in a way that is not at all obvious from just a translation, right? Because you translate kapāla, in this context as something like cranium. So this is an important nuance to the verse that, as far as I've noticed, other translators haven't brought out. Maybe there is someone. Okay, so now, if you see one of these skull bowls, it's the sort of middle point. That's where you're fixing your attention inside your own skull. And there's a weird thing that can happen with this exercise. I've done it myself, where it's like you can sort of throw your attention to the inside of the top of your head, and it kind of sticks there in an interesting way that's hard to describe. And I think the technique, this yukti, I think we're on yukti number 8, definitely works. It's simple and it works, at least for me. So then what does the verse say? Krameṇa manaso dārḍhyāt. Krameṇa manaso dārḍhyāt. So what does that mean? Through gradually, krameṇa, gradually, stage by stage, bit by bit, through gradually increasing dārḍhya, steadiness of manas, of mind, and the faculty of attention. So I've just here translated it as mind, but through your kind of ability to keep the focal point of your attention, which we colloquially call mind, one-pointed mind, still mind, but we're really talking about attention. So through gradually increasing steadiness of mind. So dārḍhya is steadiness and its strength and its fixity, all of those kind of shades of meaning, okay? So through this gradually increasing steadiness of mind, lakṣayet, lakṣyam, uttamam, one will perceive that which is most worthy of being perceived. So, or one will realize, comprehend, or encompass the uttama lakṣya, the ultimate goal, because lakṣya also means goal. Lakṣya is a target, like if you're shooting an arrow, a bow and arrow, lakṣya is the target. So you're going to realize the ultimate goal, through this practice. Well, that seems like quite a dramatic claim. Just by putting my attention in the top of the inside of my skull, I'm going to realize the ultimate goal. Well, it's what you might ask from a kind of modern Western perspective. What's so special about this practice? Well, nothing actually, because the whole point is that any practice, if perfected, could realize the ultimate goal. It's just that No, some practices like this one are almost too simple for the modern mind, which jumps here and there very easily, or maybe it's a constitutional thing. Maybe if your vata, whatever era and culture you live in, if you're vata exacerbated, or even worse, vata deranged, you're gonna have a hard time with a simple focus type concentration meditation like this. It's not going to click so well for certain constitutions or for anyone who's vata exacerbated. That's a Ayurvedic term if you didn't know it. So it's sort of too much wind in the element in the mind, and it's just jumps here and there. It's hard to keep it steady. So that person will take up another practice, because as we read later in the text, any one of these practices in the Vijñāna-bhairava can take you all the way, at least theoretically. It's not any one of them for a given individual, only some of them for a given individual, but any one of them theoretically for just a kind of abstract theoretical person could be the one that takes them all the way, as it were. I would be surprised if this particular yukti took anyone all the way, but definitely it can have some effect, some impact, in the development of steadiness of mind, which is something very much worth having, even if it doesn't spill over into some kind of awakening or liberated awareness. Okay, so this is something that can be done as a micro meditation for sure. Anywhere, anytime, out and about, you could just do this practice. And the thing that's not mentioned here, but certainly must be included, is relaxing the jaw. This is elsewhere called divya-karana. And I've found that this practice just doesn't really work unless you're relaxing the muscles of the face and the jaw, and while you put your attention there on the inside of the crown. Now, by the way, we have seen in previous verses a great importance given to the central channel in this particular tantra. And so let's remember that this point where we're fixing our attention is near the terminus, near the upper terminus, a few inches short but near the upper terminus of the central channel, and where the central channel specifically passes through the crown of the head. So it is significant in this text that this point of concentration is indeed a point within the central channel. Okay, so now if you get sort of maximum effect from this practice, it will lead to a kind of opening of the Brahma Randhra, the door of the absolute, this kind of potential opening that can happen in the energy body that can even feel physically palpable. It can feel like the top of your head has opened up. And I have even had the experience a couple times myself, but I've talked to people who have it frequently, where they really, the first few times, they've got to just touch. They have to touch because there feels literally like there's a hole now in the head. And of course, some people in the ancient past sort of took this notion a bit too far and did trepanning, where they actually drilled a physical hole there, which if you're very, very careful, you can do without injuring your brain. But I don't recommend it. Please do not try that at home. Okay, so let's see, we'll do the practice, for a minute here, but let's see if there's questions. Manish asks, is gradually increasing steadiness of mind referring to the increased focus or concentration at the top of the head from the inside? Yes, but also then the idea being, if the practice is working for you, you will have increased steadiness of mind in everyday life, for sure. Like that your mind will be less vata. It'll be less pulled hither and thither by the stimuli of everyday life. And indeed, I find that fruit from this practice that can definitely work. But again, if any practice doesn't click for you, just move on to another one. Don't get stuck on trying to force a practice that doesn't work for you to work. Having said that, with certain practices, you have to give them a chance. They often don't work right away. Yeah, and Catherine mentions, my sense is that most of the yuktis end with a promise of reaching the ultimate goal. That's absolutely true. The great majority of them are like, yeah, do this thing and you will attain the ultimate. So whether, I think that's reiterating a key teaching in the text, and also perhaps a little bit of salesmanship. Andrew mentions this. You could do this practice while driving your kid to school. I don't recommend that. No, because if you do it, and you're supposed to do it pretty intensely, and then your awareness really gets lodged there and is less externally focused. There are other practices that include your external environment that are more appropriate to do in those contexts. But certainly you can do this practice on lunch break, sitting on a bench, or you can do it as a micro meditation anywhere, anytime, but you need to give it your full attention. It's not really something, well, it is something you could do while doing certain activities that don't take much focus, like washing the dishes or something. Okay, so we're almost ready to do the practice. Any other comments? Okay, so it's incredibly simple to say, and it's just about cultivating your ability. So again, sorry for the train in the background if you can hear that. Relaxing the jaw, really relaxing that jaw, letting the jaw hang in a very relaxed mode. And the jaw hangs so relaxed that the lips almost come apart. That's important. Now for this practice, it's great to put the tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth, wherever it's most comfortable. Don't worry about the exact spot on the roof of the mouth. Wherever it's most comfortable for most people, it's the front of the roof of the mouth. So that helps direct the energy upwards towards jaw relaxed, tongue on the tip of the roof of the mouth. Tongue on the front of the roof of the mouth. Eyes soften back in the head. And now cast awareness up to that point, the center of the inside of your skull. And perhaps you even feel it. There can be a little tingle there. And you may start to feel prana, life force energy at that point. It can even feel like you're inhaling and exhaling palpably through that point. And the verse doesn't mention this, but from oral tradition, we know that if you are bothered by thoughts while doing this practice, you can visualize a tiny incandescent sun there in the inside of the crown of your head. And then if any thoughts start to arise, you cast them into the blazing furnace of that tiny incandescent sun. But this is only if necessary to stay present with the practice. Otherwise, just keep that focal point of attention. And if attention wanders from that point, you just bring it back. It's that simple. Okay, so give that a try for the next week, several times a day if possible. And next week we get another beautiful central channel practice. So again, we do see some degree of progression. Sometimes a verse just seems totally random, but here again we see some kind of progression, because if you do this practice we just did today for the next week, then you may find that it helps the following practice, which is a central channel practice. I'm excited to share. Okay, nice to be with all of you, and your practice toolbox keeps growing, and imagine what it'll be like in another year, because we will continue this video series until we examine all of these practices in as much depth as they deserve. And as I mentioned, if I glean anything really useful from the commentary, then I'll post about that. Let's remember to send blessings of love and gratitude to all the patrons on Patreon whose generous support every month makes it possible for me to do free video content and teaching and courses like this for everyone. So thank you very much. And lastly, Catherine says in the comments, I want to repeat this because it's a great share. She said, that point really feels like the point at which a human can most easily sense the dissolution into all and the connection to all. Certainly that's true for some people who try this practice, and I think that is exactly the point. So thanks for summing it up. Om.